Okay, good evening. Let's, I'd like to open the meeting and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rita, can we please have the roll call? Wendy Burton, here. Julia Dakota, here. Eric Ames.
Present.
Throw me on that.
You seated that last time, too.
Nathan does it every time. And Teddy Secor.
All present, all prepared.
Yeah.
That's right.
I am dedicating the meeting tonight to the Climate Smart Task Force. They operate quietly without a lot of fanfare, but they are doing such important work to help our community to become more energy aware, energy efficient, and to do what we can for our little piece of the planet. So we're very grateful to have you here and also to learn what you've been up to. And we'll hear from them very shortly. I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda, though we have to add the Climate Smart Task Force because Rita dropped you off. Sorry. Was there anything else we needed?
Yes,
to add?
7E.
Resolution 7E.
Resolution 7E. Did I write that, or that's Julia's? Oh,
Yes.
I wrote that.
Yes.
No, that's Julia's. I told you I shouldn't be here tonight. Okay, so, well, I'm so tired.
Somebody pass an agenda down to me now, please.
Oh.
That's okay. We're going to share.
You reached it for it, so you have to pass it down now. Yep. You gotta figure out how to reach it. See, I gotta get involved too.
Could I have a second on the agenda?
Second.
I will second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the first order of business is for our town board liaison reports. Teddy, do you have something?
Yes, I have 3 reports.
Goodness.
So the CSC is doing, at this meeting, that's better. So the CSC is doing a presentation tonight on the greenhouse gas inventory and climate vulnerability. That's really the biggest topic that we've been discussing for the last several weeks, and we will be present at Community Day. We will be right next to the Climate Conservation Advisory Commission. The other thing is the Haunted Fortress. They started work 2 Sundays ago. I misspoke. They will be every other Sunday working at the Haunted Fortress, so if you'd like every other Sunday to help out, if it's a scorcher, you know, they might end a little bit early. Otherwise, they're there. And what else?
So that's this Sunday.
That's this Sunday they will be down there, and then in September they will be working every Sunday, no exception. That, and we're moving into advertising in August, so we are collecting names for free advertisements, which is a lot easier than I thought it would be, and that'll be pretty good. What else was there?
ZBA?
ZBA, yes, thank you. Last night, the ZBA held a public hearing regarding the court remand in the issue of Charwell Drive versus the town, or yes, Rathjen's Landscaping versus the Town of Stanford, or the people, however it is worded. There's a public hearing that is left open for the next month minus a week. So 1 week before the next ZBA meeting, which will be in August, you are allowed to submit comments and concerns to the ZBA for their consideration. It has to be related to the matter at hand, which is the court remand addressed in the matter.
Well, more specifically, it's about whether or not the nursery business, which Ben has started up at on his property, is allowable as an accessory use for the property.
Yes.
That's the issue.
And there is going to be another public hearing possibly next month. There was supposed to be a first public hearing last night, but the person did not get the notices out in time, so he failed to hold a public hearing. So that will possibly be held next month, but we don't know yet. That's all.
Thank you.
The planning board did not have a formal meeting in June. They met informally to discuss a future matter, so I don't have any report on that. I did attend the Rec Commission meeting last night for Nathan. There was some business discussed. Richard Bell is moving away, and he will be resigning from the Rec Commission effective the end of July. So there will be an open position on the Rec Commission.
He sold his house.
They also discussed Community Day, and the Rec Commission agreed to help out with games that the Grange wants to put on during the day. The next meeting will be on Thursday, August 29th for the Rec Commission. That's it.
A Thursday?
Yes, a Thursday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nathan?
I don't really have any prepared notes for this, so I'm going to just kind of ad hoc this conversation. On June 21st, I met with the regional deputy director and one of the head engineers for Region 8 DOT. So Region 8 covers Columbia, Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, Ulster, and Westchester County. So Region 8 is a significant part of, well, we are a small part of District 8. They actually came here. So I met with both of them. Chris Drago was also here as well. We had a really good conversation just to understand what was the challenges that they had around addressing things that we're seeing in our town as far as our, particularly Route 82 was the concern. We learned that their budget has remained flat for the last several years. Not really usually a big issue, but the problem is that with inflation and other things, the costs of materials have gone up. So they're having to do the less work with the same amount of money, essentially. We also learned probably 10 to 40 years worth of historical information around how there were certain jobs cut and how they, this workforce used to be double in size. So what I did learn as far as specific to what is happening on Route 82 is that they are planning to visit the area either later this month or in August to do what is called a side box repair. So the roadways that we have were initially designed much more narrow, and I don't know at what time, but they extended all of them to be in up to code essentially. So they put a 4-foot width on it, and so over time that seam, which you can see, will start to crack. And so what they do is they go and they strip it up and go and do it again. So they will likely do that this year because we went out to, we did do one site visit. I wasn't going to drive all of 82 with them, so it was a big effort. But we did go to the curve that's just south of the gas station in town. It's by far, in my opinion, one of the worst spots. And amazingly, as we got out of the car, a truck bottomed out one of the holes there. So it was like perfect timing. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even have to. I didn't even have to point it out. I mean, it was. They saw a lot of the damage. They witnessed it when they came up, and so I said, well, what can we do? Meaning the town and Chris to kind of help, either get more budget. There are obvious things like talking to Dee Dee, talking to Michelle Hinchy. Talking to other state representatives. Definitely the public doing that, the board doing it, both of those are effective means. They will continue to be in communication with us about it. They did share 2 links that we have on file now around what active projects are in place in terms of what is coming up. I'm still waiting to hear, I asked for historic data at least for like a decade or so on what's been done on 82. Because there's a lot of question marks on when actually anything was done to it to repair it, other than the maintenance pothole fixing. So I'm still waiting on an answer for that. But they're also trying to give us a target date on when they think that it might be something that would be a bigger undertaking. But it's great to have, we met face to face. We now have a name, we have numbers, we have emails. So we've got a point of contact to get those things addressed. And then what I did, they asked also of us, so I'm asking the public to do the same. It doesn't have to be in the same format. What I did is I created a Google map and highlighted all the sections between Pine Plains, Route 199, and then 44, and all the sections that I believe are in significant neglect that need to be addressed. So I sent them that, and then they were going to share that, the engineering team, they were going to look at that and then do a site visit. I probably only picked 2 or 3 spots between here and Pine Plains because I'm not as familiar, but if folks, in the public have any questions, I can see if it's already on the map and I can update it and send it to them again, or if it's net new, I can share it. So it's progress, it's slow, but at least, there's information coming, and that was something that we didn't even have before. So.
I think that's great thinking. I mean, we were just in a big black hole, so
Yeah.
it's great. Thank you.
Yep.
No pun intended.
Black pothole.
Yeah. How do potholes get formed?
Yeah, they chuckled about that too, because I said I was from New England, and the engineer was from New England too, and he was like,
We know from potholes.
that letter didn't come from them, so.
I went to a fire commissioners meeting, and they have been working, they had to close down stop using our ambulances. They're officially off the books, we're not allowed to use them, but we are allowed to basically have a fly car, a car that's somewhat equipped, a vehicle that's somewhat equipped, so that the folks in the fire company who are emergency care workers will be able to go out to accidents. Right now, they're not allowed to because our own ambulances were shut down. So there's a huge amount of red tape, big surprise, but Kathy Spears in particular, has been plowing through it, so that's a step in a good direction. I don't have my. That's okay. I don't have my bank reconciliation because I'm really stuck on the general fund and highway fund, and the payroll accounts all went ballistic over the last month, so I haven't been able to finish that yet. I will finish it, and we have no major budget modifications to make. We have a 1 or 2 small ones, but we're in good shape. Julia.
Yep. So the CAC met on the 26th to review the natural resources inventory. I thought it was fascinating. It is on schedule to have the narrative completed by Carey Institute, which will be more of like high-level information, not necessarily commentary on how the information should be used, like i.e., they're not going to say, this could represent a future zoning consideration because this is a, valuable soil in this particular area. They'll just provide commentary on the overall resources inventory. When that happens, from the community, we'll need photos, which there'll be more details to come on what will be specifically needed. They'll need drafters to draft the introduction and the glossary, and reviewers of the information, so like editors for the maps, accuracy, narrative, all of that. That can go, any inquiries for, if you're interested in doing that, we'll go to cac@townofstanford.org. There will be a web-making tool available at the parcel level at the county. That's what historically has been available for public use. It's to be used as like a first reference point, but not substitute an actual survey on the property. So Tom Angel from the Zoning Commission was there, and there were several questions on like, okay, how should we interpret this information from like a zoning perspective? Because given the comprehensive plan, much of the zoning will be redone. The natural resources inventory will just be a high-level inventory. It will not be used for zoning purposes. So it's really for information only, and again, only used as like a first reference point and not as a like, this is the only information out there. The next meeting for the CAC will be on the 17th of July at 6, where there will be discussion on the proposed Iroquois pipeline expansion, which doesn't run through this area, but does have transfer points in Dover and Pleasant Valley.
Did the narrative that Gary was going to do, is that, I'm not sure I followed.
Yeah, that was, Julia was discussed, that was the narrative that the Carey Institute volunteers.
Okay, great, thank you.
Did I capture everything accurately?
Yes, you did.
Perfect, okay.
Excellent, great, okay. So I would like to open privilege of the floor. If you would like to come up and say something germane to the town, please do. Just state your name and address for Rita Mary, and you have 3 minutes. Claudia.
Someone's phone.
That's for the presentation, that's fine.
Okay, I won't touch it. Claudia DeVellis, 265 Charles Drive. This is a public safety thing in terms of roads. I'd like to request that the town contact the relevant people for the exit at 9 Partners Road from the Taconic north bend. It's not even a right angle turn. It's more like a 45-degree turn as you get off. It's really dangerous. You have to come to a full stop on the Taconic so that you can make that turn, because if you come at speed, even 30 miles an hour, you will wind up on 9 Partners Road in the lane that's opposing traffic. It's a death trap, almost literally. I think the power of the town would be quicker than me going around with little petitions. Because I had asked a number of years ago, and I was told, oh, that's not a dangerous intersection at all. It is no problem. And I think that the person I spoke with had never looked at a map. So if the town could take the lead on it, I think it would be helpful.
Thank you, Claudia.
There are a few others like that.
Renee Perpetua, 241 Market.
Do we not have a mic over there? Is it? Oh, Teddy, can you? Oh, there you go. Okay.
241 Market?
241 Market, yes.
Thank you.
We had the great luck on Market Lane of having a speed monitor on our road for several weeks, and it really did make a big difference. And it was a wonderful thing to see people slow down and actually come close to doing the speed limit. And I spoke to Carl Merritt about bringing it back, and what he said to me was that I should suggest that the town invest in a couple of more speed monitors, in other words, from our coffers, in order to have them more often on our local roads, since they do make a difference, in my humble opinion. But, so that's something I'd like to suggest, that we as a town purchase a couple of those speed monitors so that they can be used more often. Matter of fact, I can't wait for the one on Market to come back.
Did you all discuss the cost of it?
They're 15 grand.
15 grand each?
15 grand together? What were they?
5,000 for 2.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's,
Oh.
It's 2,500. I mean, adjust for inflation, but that's what it was when we got the first.
when we bought those first two.
So wait, but and then is there like a data plan or anything you have to? Are they ongoing costs or are they just capital costs?
Well, the capital
Just
costs,
capital.
but the with us, part of they're also they take up the highway guys' time, so that it's just a small factor, but they have to schlep them around and not do the work that they're doing. But boy, Jane, I don't know what I was thinking.
Something bigger.
Some bigger.
It actually conditions people. I mean, now, even though it's gone, I see people slowing down towards that area where the monitor was. So it's a wonderful thing. And then just one more question. How often are we going to be reassessed, our properties going to be reassessed in the town from now on? Has the policy changed? It seems like we get assessed very often, like every other year. When I have been here a long time, and I could count on one hand how many times I have been reassessed over the years.
Bob, do you know?
Yeah, actually, a new assessment rule is prepared every year, and the values, the assessments can change every year. Now, in terms of doing an overall, I think over the last couple of years, or in some years, Steve has done has assumed that, let's say that the market would rise by some percentage, like let's assume it's 8% or 10% or something like that. I recall the last letter he sent out said that if noted that you may see an increase in your assessed value, but if your neighbors are also being reassessed at the same rate, you really stand in the same position vis-a-vis the town's overall budget.
Yeah, but the point is that your taxes go up, really. Every time you reassess, your taxes go up, in my experience. And for senior citizens...
He adjusts some, and some people's taxes go up, and some people's go down.
Well, mine always do, but go up, it seems. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been reassessed twice, I think. Twice. And I just don't remember it happening that often, maybe because the values didn't change as much. I don't know what that is, but for people who are senior citizens and on fixed incomes who want to age in place, we really don't have anyone that we can turn to in terms of talking about how we can control the increase in taxes.
Some of the increases that you're seeing are the school district. Because the school district makes up a substantial part of your
Yeah, I
tax bill.
understand that, but I thought there was on school taxes, but I guess that has changed.
Well, they haven't hit it.
They haven't.
They haven't hit the cap.
It was a 2% cap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they haven't. No, I don't know.
We're 2%.
Yeah.
I don't remember what that is.
But that's where, because I've seen an increase as well, but it's, if you look at your overall tax payment, that's a significant part of it. And so even if you were to see an increase in your assessment and it was above relative to your neighborhood, it would be so nominal you probably wouldn't even notice it. But when you're seeing something that's noticeable, you can probably attribute it to the school district.
I understand that, but my question is,
Renee, can I suggest that you come in and talk to Steve, because we're not doing the best job, and Steve will explain whatever it is he's doing.
I think I already know what Steve is going to say to me, but that's okay.
Yes.
Hi, Bob Burns, 186 Charwell Drive. I just wanted to share for a minute about the ZBA meeting last night. Want to share for a minute about the ZBA meeting last night?
That's much better.
Much better.
Okay. So the meeting was to decide whether, well, first let me say that there was the Article 78 that a lot of people are aware of, maybe not everybody, but the judge's decision, the judge's order is that landscaping is not part of a nursery. So the landscaping part of Rathjen's nursery is annulled, okay? The other order is that whether the property could be determined as a nursery gets sent back to the ZBA to see if it would fit as a nursery according to Stanford zoning codes, zoning laws, okay? I'm going to say something positive about the ZBA, and then something not so, just something concerning. First, there was a speaker, Travis Christian, came up and gave a very detailed description of zoning codes and why this cannot be an accessory, why it does not work. Mainly because it has changed the character of the neighborhood. The other thing being that an accessory use cannot be incidental. It has to be subordinate to the property, I think is the actual wording in the code. It's actually 164-8, because I've been getting into all the codes and learning about this stuff now too. So we have new leadership at the ZBA, and I thought it was great. I mean, I've been to a few of the meetings. It's been about the same thing. It's the dump trucks going up and down the road, and everybody knows about it. Felt like we were listened to last night by a couple of members, really for the first time since I've come to the ZBA meetings. The new lead of the ZBA, his name is Neil. I thought his response was fair in that he's new, he's just learning about this particular case, and he needs some time to digest. And he said that he also learned some things last night from us. Mm-hmm. There were some things that we had said that he didn't know. In a way that concerns me, though. I mean, I appreciate and I really respect everything that he said, but what concerns me about it is that it really is, like, obvious that this cannot be an accessory use. What I talked about was what Ben Ratchen, the owner of Ratchen's Landscaping, said last year at the last determination. It was actually a year ago, July 12th last year in 2023. He described the nursery, he described his plans for the nursery, that it was going to be a wholesale nursery for profit, and you can look at the tape. It's from July 12th hearing last year. He describes exactly what he's going to do with the nursery, and everything he says describes something that cannot be an accessory use according to our town codes. So it's like a closed case, it's a slam dunk. So I'm concerned why ZBA leadership has to think on it for another month and reevaluate, but I'm glad he is, because I do trust him. He seemed like he was really trying to work for the citizens along with everybody. But just the last thing I'd say is, but there was a little bit of an exchange with people, very friendly at the end. It was the first time I'd seen that too, where members were talking to people from our group that's written this Article 78. And one of the members said out loud that, well, when we decide and determine this, we have to think that this is going to set like a precedent for the whole town for the next case. And I thought about that, and I just heard it, and we were done talking. But that really concerns me, because I think that the role of the ZBA is to evaluate all these cases individually. This particular thing, even a quarter of the size of what it is, might not work on a cul-de-sac road. Just for that reason, because people bought their homes to live on a cul-de-sac like we did. Whereas it might work on another, like you might be able to give somebody that variance, or whatever you would call it, use variance or accessory, if it was on more of a crossroad, you know what I mean, or whatever. I mean, I just think that these things have to really be looked at individually, and not that this decision doesn't mean that everybody else in the town gets to do it too. You know what I mean? I think he was wrong.
I was concerned when he said that, when Pat said that, and we had heard it before from one other ZBA person. And it's something I think we're going to have to speak with attorney about, because I didn't think that they're not writing new zoning code. in my understanding was they're supposed to determine what's happening on Ben Matheson's property. So I picked up on that as well, especially because it was the second time I've heard it. So I think we'll have to have some kind of conversation with council, because to me, it's not a global decision. They were remanded to look at this piece of property.
Well, maybe we should go back to the original charters of each of the committees, of the zoning board of appeals, and then the zoning commission, and then the planning board.
Actually, it would be in the purview of the new zoning commission if they were going to rewrite the zoning law.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but
exactly.
yeah, it's not in the purview of the planning board.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm glad you noted it, and we will have a conversation about
Great,
it.
thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
Betty Cosgrove, 186 Charwell Drive. I don't want to beat it with a hammer or 2x4, but this same meeting last night, the ZBA meeting, this issue has been going on for 4 years. We've had 2 desist orders, one Article 78, which is basically a lawsuit by 20 households, and 3 of the same ZBA members are going to be voting on this next month, and 1 new person. I don't have a positive outlook on this because it's been dragged out this far. And when I hear something like, oh, if we give Ben an accessory, we have to give everybody else, that kind of talk is a little bit bullying and a little bit threatening. In other words, I think that each case should be handled independently and uniquely. But I don't have a lot of faith, and I'm just going to put it out there, that the voting is going to look any different than it has in the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, because 3 of those members were seen talking in the parking lot after the ZBA meeting, and the newer person may be unduly influenced because there's a strong body of opinion already pre-existing.
He's a very independent leader.
But he's not going to carry the vote.
Well, we'll have to
One
wait
person.
and see.
So I'm just voicing my opinion. Again, this has been going on for 4 years. We've suffered the brunt of the noise and the disturbance. And every time there's a desist order and the person at Ratchins appeals it, he gets to continue his operation. So everything's always in favor of the landowner. So I'm just voicing my opinion about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Anybody else? And we will close the privilege of the floor and open. We're having a public hearing tonight on local law number 7 of 2024, authorizing the town board to override the real property tax levy limit for the 2025 fiscal year town budget. I explained last month the reason that we need to do this formality, which is pass a law that overrides the budget for next year, is because when we took on the responsibility of managing the ambulance district from the fire company could no longer, the fire district could no longer manage the ambulance district. We were told by the attorney who handled the matter, who actually is the attorney for the fire district, that the ambulance district would carry its own tax cap. It doesn't, which I found out at finance school. So basically we overran the budget last year, the tax cap last year unknowingly, because the $850,000, which is the amount that the ambulance coverage costs our town, basically ran our budget up into the stratosphere. So this doesn't mean our taxes will go up. Our taxes may go up depending on how we craft the budget. There's been a lot of increases, and we haven't even started working on the budget. But all it means, as far as the formality of it, is that this will bring our tax cap up to where it's supposed to be. Does that make sense? Okay. So, that being said, does anyone have an opinion about it? Want to speak at the
Could I have a motion to open the public
I was
hearing?
going to say, I need a motion.
Oh,
He seconded it.
I'm seconding it.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
okay then. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, the moment we've all been waiting for. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, we're having a presentation by the Climate Smart Task Force that has been working quietly for, it's over a year and a half.
Yeah, it's going
2
on.
years almost. Anyway, they are working to make our town more energy efficient, more cognizant of ways that we can basically use less energy and be kinder to the planet. Is that a fair? Okay, so we have, this is our first presentation, and we're really excited to hear. And so Nate, are you giving this, or is Teddy giving it? Or?
I like just got here,
Yeah.
so we recorded it.
Okay.
And Abrielle is not able to make it either, so she spoke as well. So it is a 26-minute recording, so if it gets tedious, you can always, just go to questions. So, but
So should we turn down the lights?
Daddy? Yeah.
Maybe we should move to see it.
Or maybe we can put that on.
So it would give a quick overview and also to make sure that this thing is actually working correctly. Nathan and Abrielle had worked together to take one of those microphones over this.
Here, Teddy.
Thank you. This is great. Okay, so Nate and Abrielle had worked together on this presentation with input from the rest of the Climate Smart Communities Task Force members. The presentation as an overview of how the town is currently using energy, where it can change, what our environment kind of looks like in terms of environmental hazards. Am I on the right track with this, Nate?
Yep.
And kind of what we should be as a town prepared for in the near future, how we should adjust our energy usage, how we should really understand our local environment. So, more to be said as soon as I pull up the presentation. Oh, that's not cool.
Well, if it doesn't work, we just run through the slides.
Oh, Maury.
We can run through this. Of course.
Use the PowerPoint.
No, I don't. I have that on my phone.
I have it on my phone too.
You have.
Do you want, can you plug in with this one, or I can send you the file, Teddy?
Oh yeah, Julia, did you use the file?
I do.
We can just present it.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to send it?
Can we plug your computer into the?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
just-
if we have the right cord. I brought all your cords.
Amazing.
I have this. Oh. Thank you, Nate, for saving the day because my computer is.
So. We have.
It's like, now it's not working.
All right.
Piece of junk.
Nope. Actually.
This one.
there it is.
I have it right here.
Oh, okay. Can we? I don't think I can plug this in the projector.
Then use this.
Use that.
This. My dog is a converter for all that stuff.
That'll be amazing.
I deep down inside knew something like this was going to happen.
I don't think that we have a plug for HDMI or.
I do have actually on this little USB the presentation.
Oh, the PowerPoint.
Not the PowerPoint, the speech you have.
Okay.
The actual presentation itself. If you want to load up.
Well, I think the issue is we can't connect this to the projector.
No, but we can connect his computer to the projector, and I can save that onto his thumb drive.
Oh, yes.
Or just send it to him via email.
Sorry, everyone. We'll get there.
Oh, you know what? There's not one of those. So let me email it to you, Teddy.
No.
You got it? Oh my goodness gracious, Lord help us all.
We're all gonna get there.
This is the only big item of the night, so I mean, it's,
Yeah, okay. I will first, if you could just
Sure.
throw it on there.
Yep.
And then we'll, and then Teddy, you can go up your computer again. Cool. And then I'll just go from your computer and for this PowerPoint on the right.
no. This is so cheap.
Can you just put the PDF on plans? I think I sent you the PDF.
I have a PDF.
Perfect.
I'm sure this now, I don't have to write anything down.
Cool. See, if you weren't here, who would have thought? It would have worked.
It did not. It didn't see it, but it's okay. I'm going to email you, Teddy. Do you have your internet set up on your computer?
No, this does not have internet. This is a very old.
Should we do this?
Julia, we were trying to figure that.
You can do
It
it?
was working earlier. It was. We all saw it.
You're kidding. The one
Here, if you can figure out the cords.
I literally ran a test 5 times.
And we definitely can't see that.
I do have, this is HDMI here, I think, right?
Yep.
The projector doesn't have it.
But is there no converter for HDMI? Is this will go to HDMI?
You would need it.
Does this go into that projector?
It's a VGA.
I have an idea. Maybe we should pass some resolutions and come back to it. Oh, nope.
This will work.
Okay.
See, the second you suggest something new, everything works.
We're just trying to build up anticipation.
Julia, I'm gonna borrow your computer. How's the baby doing? All right.
Good. He's starting to
Here we go.
roll on the side.
Sweet. That's good. Sure.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
So then I think you can just,
Now, the real question is the audio working for that computer, for the projector?
No, he's gonna do.
No,
I'm just
he's
gonna
gonna voice
Oh,
over.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
there you go.
Okie doke.
Okay,
So
so
we-
you just toggle down.
So I just need my.
You can either use this
Let's
one,
do
or
this.
you can
Yeah.
Just the podium.
Great. The white can't go to the podium. Okay, here's how this is going.
Julia, Nate, thank you for saving this presentation.
Nate, I can toggle for you. You can do
Thank you. Okay, hi, I'm Nate Kimball. I'm on the Climate Smart Task Force, and thanks for joining us today. We've been working together for about a little over a year. I'm going to go through who we are, our members, and Julia, you can go to the next slide. So, in 2022, Stanford opted via resolution into New York State's Climate Smart Communities program. I'm going to talk a little bit later about what that is. In 2023, a task force was chosen to move the work forward and collaborate with stakeholders, and we're really seeking to build resiliency in town and protect our residents from climate hazards. Go to the next slide. As many of you may know, the costs associated with severe weather in the United States are increasing, and sorry, it's a little hard to see the slide, but we'll distribute the slides afterwards. Effectively, between 1980 and today, the inflation-adjusted cost of severe weather has almost tripled, has actually tripled every year. And so every year we're paying about $157 billion to recover from natural disasters, and the number of events are increasing as well. So the costs on communities like Stanford are also increasing, and so part of the task force's remit is to find ways to build resiliency, reduce the costs that we're facing every year from heat waves, from snowstorms, from floods, and keep our communities safe. So to help towns with this, New York State founded a Climate Smart Communities program, and it's helping local governments take actions both to reduce their energy use and adapt to a changing climate. So if you opt in to the Climate Smart Communities program, it opens you up to the ability to receive grants for things like energy efficiency initiatives, resiliency initiatives. It basically moves you to the top of that selection pool for state grant programs. So we have a strong interest in being a part of the program and applying for it,
and in scoring well on their scoring matrix. So, here in Stanford, we've seen, if you can go back to, we've seen a few major impacts. So there were major power outages in the summer of 2020. If you all remember, a lot of parts of the town were without power for about 5 days. I know I was working from the library. The winter storm in March of last year also knocked power out to a lot of us for a long time. And air quality and smoke impacts last summer were something that we definitely didn't expect and were severely damaging and hazardous to people's health. So we need to improve our resiliency. We need to have resources for people when these events happen, because they're happening a lot more frequently. So we are proposing some values that we would like input on from the town, and these are definitely not set in stone, but we really want to focus on building resiliency in the town, protect people from the impacts of severe weather. We want to bring resources to town to invest in our community and make this an economic development opportunity as well. And we want to reduce costs and identify new drivers for revenue to the town as part of this. State grants open you up to a lot of different potential programs, like electric vehicle charging stations, which could bring more visitors to town, could help the town grow. So New York State's, the Climate Smart Communities program that is run by the state has a certification process. So that's why the committee is meeting. We're working on building up to a certification by the state. So first we have to register, which we've done. Then we have to undertake mandatory and voluntary actions, which I'll go through. And then we are able to get certified by the state, and then we can benefit. We can take advantage of grant programs, and we can take advantage of the state's developments in this area. So the committee is comprised of 6 members and then 2 advisors. So Teddy, we really need a headshot. So Teddy is our chair. Abrielle Hamilton is our co-chair. Dennis is our secretary, and I'm a member. And then we have Tracy Springer, Michelle Gluck. We have an advisor in Anna Hara McGrew from the Hudson River Estuary Program. So she's our liaison to help us through the certification process, which is super valuable to us because we don't know how to do it. And Wendy is our town supervisor and has been advising us along the way. So we've taken a couple of actions. One is determining what the emissions of the town's operations look like. It's one of the mandatory actions under the program. And one is assessing the town's vulnerability to climate change. So I'm going to go through these 2 studies that we did last summer, and these were done just by membership. We didn't engage any external resources. We're not completely unqualified. I did this for a living, and was a consultant to corporations on how to adapt to climate change on the corporate level, and develop greenhouse gas. And I've been developing greenhouse gas inventories and decarbonization plans for 15 years. So took a lot of that knowledge and applied it to the town, which is very different. A town is very different than a company. So it was a learning process for all of us. So we did a greenhouse gas inventory on town operations. What does that mean? We assessed all of the energy use that the town is responsible for, and then calculated what that means in terms of what the town's emitting every year from a greenhouse gas perspective. Greenhouse gases are of course, the result of the combustion of fossil fuels, and large body of scientific evidence suggests that greenhouse gas emissions are causing global warming and climate change, and if we do not slow down the use of greenhouse gases, we will see irreversible changes and significant challenges going forward. So we wanted to measure the emissions that were under the town's control, and we looked at what are called Scope 1 and 2 emissions, and I'm not going to go too into detail here because it's a lot of technical jargon, but essentially we wanted to look at all the energy use that we had direct control over. What bills are we receiving that result in the combustion of diesel or gas in our vehicles or electricity in our buildings? So pretty simple analysis. We just looked at essentially the town's utility bills over the course of a couple of years to understand where our impacts were. And maybe unsurprisingly, over 90% of our greenhouse gas emissions from town operations come from our vehicles. So a mixture of gasoline and diesel vehicles that we use for highway work for the most part, are contributing to the town's greenhouse gas emissions, and buildings only contribute a little over 7% of our emissions. And that share is decreasing as our grid in New York gets cleaner. So New York is investing heavily in renewables, and so the emissions associated with your electricity use are coming down every year. And so what we see here is, an impact from vehicles that we need, right? Like, we can't just get rid of our diesel and gas vehicles. We have to use them for really, really critical town functions. So, that leads us to think about how we can do things a little bit more efficiently, save money, and potentially transition to cleaner sources of fuel in the future. You can go to the next slide. So, in terms of our emissions, it's pretty small impact, right? We have a few vehicles, we have a few buildings. The town has limited control over what happens on people's private property and in the rest of the county, but we can control what we operate. And so one thing that we recommend is looking at why the fuel consumption in our fleet varies so widely. We have some guesses. Strong snow winters would obviously cause more diesel use. A lot of highway work one summer would cause more diesel use, but just understanding that variability would be good so that we can identify potential inefficiencies that we haven't caught before. The other piece is electrifying parts of building energy use that aren't electrified. So it's far more efficient to use a heat pump, for example, than an oil boiler. And so doing that analysis and understanding how we can do it cost effectively is really important. And then, there is an option to move towards renewable sources of fuel for fleet vehicles. So if there's a cost-effective way to bring bio-based diesel in, for example, that would be another option to reduce the emissions in our fleet. I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you sort of want to educate the town people? You can't control
Yeah.
them, but you've been educating them.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a big component of the Climate Smart Communities program. So what we wanted to do was start with some analysis on what the town's impact was, but we definitely, that's a great initiative. And we were at Community Day last year. We will be at Community Day this year to do some outreach and education. And it's something that we definitely want to add to the programming. So, yeah.
Nate, we're just going to start after, 4 years of working on it, but we are converting to propane this year. We're getting rid of the old boilers.
And so that's a major benefit building-wise, yeah.
Can I ask about that? Was there a consideration for geothermal at all? Or was that just way too expensive? Or?
It was expensive, and we were told that to try to retrofit this building would be a fool's errand. It's so old, and yeah.
It wouldn't benefit.
And it would the cost would be beyond prohibitive.
Great, yeah.
Sorry, I may be jumping ahead, so if I apologize. But you said that the analysis there was mandatory and recommended aspects of this. The analysis is mandatory, but is there anything that needs to, as an action that needs to happen?
Yeah, so the action that they are asking towns to do is develop a climate, I forget what it's called, but a climate mitigation plan or something like that, where we would say, okay, like here's what we see in terms of our emissions. Here are the things that we recommend moving forward with. And I've consulted with the folks that run this program, and actually that slide would count. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of what they're asking for. Yeah.
That's my picture.
But we have all of this in an actual document explaining the methodology and everything that we can make available. So that's what we measured emissions. Now we can start to manage them and make recommendations on how folks can manage their own emissions at home.
Is the bio-based diesel fuel more expensive than?
It can be. So that's something we would have to look into. Yeah. All right, and then the second piece of work that we did was a climate vulnerability assessment. So that's basically looking at the shocks and stresses that we might see going forward in this town and that we've seen in the past. And we took a number of data sources to look at where we might see risks based on our past and where we might see risks in the future. So what we decided to do was focus on some front and center climate hazards that the town is facing. So flooding from extreme rain being one of them, riverine flooding, so when rivers overflow their banks being another, tornadoes, cold snaps and ice storms, wind damage from coastal storms, which we see here a lot and causes power outages, and extreme heat. And extreme heat is by far the deadliest climate hazard across the nation and the globe. So that's something that we definitely need to consider. And we wanted to look at the vulnerability of our critical infrastructure to all of these hazards. So one thing we'd love input on is whether our list of critical infrastructure is complete, and whether the list of hazards is complete, or whether there are more that we might need to consider. So we considered our roads, our agricultural land, our fire company facility, the highway facility, town hall, the transfer station, the Central Hudson facility on Huns Lake Road, and housing generally as critical infrastructure for the town of Stanford.
Hey, is there any use case where, or is there any case where a commercial entity would be considered critical infrastructure?
So Central Hudson is a good example of that. They are
restaurants or other businesses, like a gas station. Or something like that.
I think that's a really good suggestion, given that we only have one gas station and a couple of restaurants.
Pharmacy. And it blew up the other day?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a really good suggestion. We should add some of those pieces of infrastructure, because sometimes people need to eat and can't go too far, right? So, yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah, good suggestions. So consulted a bunch of public data sources to get some information on our town's risk, and most of it comes from FEMA. They have a really awesome tool called the National Risk Index, which looks at your risk to certain hazards that go down to the census tract level. So they can actually look at Stanfordville and our specific socioeconomic statistics and other statistics to give us a risk rating for different hazards, which is super helpful. The New York State Department of Health has a really interesting tool called the Heat Vulnerability Index, which takes a lot of these variables that you see at the bottom to basically determine how vulnerable your community is to heat shocks and stresses. And you can see that there's a number of socioeconomic variables, environmental variables, and then elderly isolation and vulnerability variables. So how much of your population is elderly. When I worked on this a few years ago, what we found is that elderly populations are really vulnerable to heat waves. They may not have air conditioning at home, and it's harder to feel a heat wave when you're when you age. And so you may not know that you're in danger before you start to experience impacts of heat illness. So it's very important to be aware of how we can help our neighbors during heat waves. So then FEMA spits out some really interesting statistics. We took all these hazards that you see on the left and looked, they basically go back in time and they consult public records on how many events have happened in your town and how, by census tract, so even smaller than zip code, and how costly they were to the town based on FEMA filings, and then what you might expect an annual loss number to be. So what's an average loss, averaged over several years, that the town might experience from a certain hazard. And you can see that hurricanes are at the top, because when a hurricane happens and moves inland, we see a lot of power outages, we see a lot of damage, and so those numbers, we don't have a lot of events on record, only 7 events, but they were very damaging events, and so that annual loss number is pretty high. And then similarly, we only have 2 tornadoes on record, but they caused a lot of damage as well, a lot of FEMA claims. And so you see, that there's a monetary impact as well as a human impact that we wanted to be aware of. So, by hazard, there's a few findings. We looked at flood hazard maps. We looked at a lot of different resources. And riverine flooding, obviously, we have vulnerabilities in our bridges. So we have a lot of old bridges. Luckily, a few of them are being replaced. But we have a lot of bridges located in what's called the 100-year flood zone, or areas that are vulnerable to flooding. And we should be talking to the highway department about how those might be impacted by a big flood. Extreme rain flooding is very different than river flooding, because it can happen all at once and it's very dangerous. So those can cause debris flows and mud flows and make roads impassable. But it's also very damaging to agricultural land, which is important for us to consider going forward.
And then we have more creeks than rivers. Are the creeks part of the river flooding?
Yeah, so they can be part of the 100-year floodplain. It doesn't distinguish between creeks and river. Okay. Yeah. Heat vulnerability is definitely potentially the most impactful from a human level. So roads can be impacted by heat. You might see that they get damaged more easily. Bridges can expand and get stuck and can be damaged. And then 75% of our housing was built before 1980, which suggests that we might not have a lot of air conditioning penetration, which can be dangerous if you're not leaving the house. Even leaving the house and going somewhere air conditioned for a couple hours a day is hugely beneficial from a health perspective. So it suggests we might want to do some outreach around that. And almost 20% of our population is older than 65. So there's definitely, we need to think about how we do some outreach during heat waves. And then the fire company might be busier during heat waves, given that it can damage electrical infrastructure, and it can impact team readiness. When you're wearing all that clothing, it's harder to work for as long as they do when there's a heat wave.
Hey, only 17% of our population is 65 and older?
That's what the statistics say.
That doesn't seem
I know, yeah.
Well, that's true. But
Depends on census response, so. Yeah. So, and then tornadoes, wind damage, obviously can damage our power grid, and then ice storms and cold snaps, which we will see more of going forward, can stress roads as well. So these are sort of the top level findings. Okay, this is like a really busy slide about the future. And what I'm gonna kind of leave you with is that there's a lot of different worlds we could live in going forward. One world is a world where we reduce fossil fuel usage really quickly. Warming isn't as bad as we might expect, but we still see impacts. So that's the green scenario. And you still see that, extreme rain events could increase by 1.5 times versus today in terms of their frequency. And that's in the best case that we probably are not going to see. If you go to the red scenario, that's basically we keep doing everything we're doing today, business as usual, and you see some really major impacts in terms of, the extreme rain could be almost 3 times as frequent, extreme heat could be almost 10 times as frequent in terms of the frequency and duration of heat waves. Drought could become a really significant issue for our town, causing crop failure and things like that. So we don't want to see that scenario because it would really it would impact our town's economy as well as the global economy really significantly. So actually, if you go back up, so there are some ways that we can mitigate and keep ourselves safe in these scenarios. Backup power is really important at our critical infrastructure, and we should make sure that all of our critical infrastructure is equipped with backup power. Coordinating our crop insurance program with our farmers with climate-smart agriculture practices can help reduce risk to farmers. So that's something that we should be doing some outreach around. Roads can be designed to be not climate proof, but climate ready. You can design with better asphalt. You can build bridges in a more resilient manner. You can use better steel. You can use better concrete. We should be thinking about that. And in terms of extreme heat, we should be doing a little bit more outreach around where our cooling centers are. I know Wendy sent out an email last week, which was super helpful. So thinking about how we get the word out about cooling center capacity and getting education out there about extreme heat impacts. Drought, there may come a time when a lot of our wells go dry, and we need to be ready for that as a town. Do we have contracts in place for emergency water supply? A lot of towns around here do, so something to think about. And then from a wildfire perspective, thinking about how we design mutual aid agreements with neighboring towns could help us in those types of emergencies. So yeah, recommendation, we should think about backup power, just make sure that we are planning our backup power appropriately. Work with the state DOT to make sure that they are designing our roads in a way that's going to protect us in the future. Think about the grants that are available for backup power, battery backups, emergency kits for residents. Desktop exercises are always a good thing to do because there are things that we haven't thought about. Smoke was probably something we didn't really think about. And if you do a desktop exercise, you can think about what resources you might want to mobilize. And then finally, I think one of the most important things we can do is check in on our neighbors, especially our elderly neighbors, to make sure that they are safe in heat waves. So when we think about the program overall, there's a lot of actions that the state recommends. We can consider these. We don't need to do these, but we are thinking about doing a waste audit for our municipal operations. It would get us points, and it might save us some money on trash pickup. Energy efficiency evaluation, looking at emergency action plans again, There's some policies that we can think about implementing. We want to do everything cost effectively, but environmentally preferable purchasing policies, solid waste policies, construction waste policies, and then plans. So what's our climate action plan? How do we build resiliency? How do we, can we develop a heat emergency plan, for example? We have some folks developing composting plans and solid waste action plans. So there's a lot happening and a lot that we want feedback on. And is that it? That's it. Yeah.
How often do towns invest in their own solar energy farms?
Typically, towns would do something like we've done with Community Solar, where we bring in an outside developer who provides the capital that and then enters into a long-term agreement with the town. Towns are not often investing in large-scale renewable projects, but in the case of Town Hall, for example, it might make sense to put some solar panels on the roof to reduce the energy consumption at this building itself. So small scale, absolutely, yes. It can be a good idea if you do the analysis and it's cost effective. Large scale, you usually want to bring in private capital for that.
I mean, there's a limited membership in that solar program, right?
No, well, I think there's probably still membership.
There's still openings.
Available.
Yeah.
I don't think they maxed out. How do you envision actually being able to get folks on board? I mean, I love this presentation,
Mm-hmm.
but in the grander universe of Stanfordville, how do we get people to take all of this seriously? Like, what's the outreach that will actually impact people? Because it seems like that's critical. There are people who still will say there's no climate issue.
Yeah. Well, it's about keeping people safe, and what I'd like to do is keep showing that chart of how much it's costing the country, because it's getting very expensive, and there's no way of getting around the numbers there.
In Florida, you can't even get homeowners insurance.
Yeah. So I don't care whether people think it's man-made or not. This is something that's important. We need to keep each other safe, and so one piece of crafting the mission of the Climate Smart Communities Task Force is, we are obviously, we want to focus on things that make the town more energy efficient, reduce energy use, but really this is about keeping people safe and keeping the town economically viable moving forward.
Sorry, go. No, you go. Well, the only and what's interesting when you say like safe, right? I think I immediately go to like the highway department just repaved all of the dirt roads in town, and some of those are quite steep, like Conklin Hill. And,
yeah.
Like is that something that like the state would say, okay, you have 10x steep dirt roads that would make it very difficult. Like, we'll give you funding to pave them. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I mean, that's something that feels like in some of these things, like that would help keep.
Yeah, because we're just going to keep, although there will be debates about whether to pave dirt roads.
Yeah.
Oh, the people on the dirt roads don't want them.
Yeah. So.
I would love very much to be able to make Town Hall a more viable cooling station. And our air conditioner we had a flood the other day.
Yeah.
But we're also doing the HVAC all over, and we're getting splits.
Great.
And we're also replacing some windows that are old and won't open. But be that as it may, I would love to be able to. And it's complicated because we're not open all night. Like, is it viable for us to make this into a real cooling station?
So the interesting thing about cooling, I've spent a lot of time on heat policy, unfortunately. And so the interesting thing about the human body is that you don't need to be in air conditioning 24 hours a day. If you can get 3 hours of air conditioning a day in a really difficult heat wave, it is going to reduce your chances of heat-related illness by a huge amount. There's
instead of like an ice bath, like cold water.
Yeah, and so there's reasons why you see people in grocery stores and malls when it's hot, and so that's the body telling you that you need to cool off. So you don't necessarily need to open things overnight. That's logistically hard, but definitely, if you have a place for people to go during the day, that's hugely helpful.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about people in homes where it's just impossible to sleep at night because it's so hot.
Yeah, that's hard.
And we
So
don't, I don't
there
know if there's any place, I mean, the library's open, but it's not open for sleeping.
there are state programs to help folks with both purchasing and then paying for the electricity associated with an air conditioner through the state. So that's something that we can pass out information on. I'm not sure how Dutchess County administers it, but it's something that is available through the state.
That's great.
Yeah.
Someone in our county or area, I don't know if it was Michelle or DD or someone, they were just promoting that actually.
Yeah.
Because it's been so hot.
It's called the HEAP program. It's actually meant for winter heating, but they've converted it to a summer program as well.
Because
Yeah.
we're freezing in
Yeah.
and overheating.
How much thought, discussion goes into conserving water?
Water.
Protecting water.
Mm.
Well, you said it's getting
Drought.
Yeah.
getting more droughts, and then we have these extreme storms.
Yeah.
Like in Millbrook, there was a tornado last week.
Yeah.
All the rain comes down, just washes away, like the ground can't really, even, it doesn't really help farms
Yeah.
unless we're retaining the water somehow.
That's a really good idea. I think we should add that to the Cornell Cooperative. I would imagine has programs on water-related practices. So we should look. I don't know much about water, but yeah.
We could hound down Abrielle and Michelle.
Yeah. We've got some folks over there that we could.
But like Bob's like a drainage expert.
Oh,
Irrigation.
Yeah.
Irrigation.
Yeah.
Irrigation in a way of watering.
Okay. Do you want to come join our committee?
Yeah,
Well, they have systems you can store in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this upcoming Monday, we have our meeting, actually, so.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
That'd be great. Yeah. If you want to leave your information with Teddy, that would be great to have you.
We need
Yeah.
a new,
Just around town hall for our gardens. We could
Yeah.
do rain barrels.
we could do rain
I've got
barrels.
4 of them,
Wow.
and it's terrific.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea.
I'm from out west where it's illegal to collect your rainwater. So.
Oh, because of the bugs?
Yeah. No, because you don't have rights to water falling from the sky.
Oh, that makes more sense out west.
Yeah.
Because what?
You don't have rights to water that falls from the sky.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I've got mine in Millbrook Winery.
Yeah.
I don't think they allow it in like Florida because it's like it's a
Mosquitoes.
attractant for mosquitoes and
Yeah.
other
It's a breeding
critters.
ground.
Yes.
Mosquitoes kick in.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with Legionnaires? I mean, what's up with the sky?
Okay.
Oh no, it's just water rights are really complicated out west. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Lobbyists.
Is it the purview of the CAC or, I know that we've been talking about this concept of wellhead protection, like finding another water source and protecting it. Is that the CAC's purview or do we?
There's the comprehensive plan recommends the creation of a water protection committee or something. I don't know
Right.
the exact term, but it's not, it wouldn't be the CAC.
It would be a whole-
Separate commissioner committee.
But it would be informed by something like the NRI, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
NRI does have maps.
Yeah.
and water bodies.
So, to that point, actually, there is historical precedent in this town for that. Years ago, Mark Burdick actually headed an organization, a very small group that actually assessed groundwater in the town of Stanford and what would be, so in that closet back there for the CAC, there is a
We have
little.
a copy of that
Yeah.
sort of, which could be used as a springboard for.
And I believe he actually specifically in one section worded it, not at the time, which was in the 80s or the early 90s, but in the future it may be wise to establish an organization like that, so.
Yeah. Cool.
Speaking of water retention, water bodies. So your slide on critical infrastructure, and you were wondering if there should be other things added to that. So the town does have a number of dams.
Right.
On private property, plus the town does own the Borden Dam. The Borden Dam, in terms of how it's rated by the state, it's a low-risk dam.
Okay.
There are other dams in town that are higher levels risk if they should fail. And I imagine they come under greater pressure as the climate
Yeah.
changes, so I don't know if that's something that should be
Yeah.
added to
yeah, we should think about that. It's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Mr. Secretary, did you record all these suggestions?
Yes.
Yes.
You might want to add the rec pond as a potential infrastructure component.
Yeah.
Because in a case of a drought, that could be a water source.
Could it?
If we got the chlorine.
Or-
That all comes out of the
It
creek,
could be
doesn't it?
coolant, yeah.
I hate to say this, but in the case of a drought, we're trucking water. We're not.
Yeah.
We're going to be trucking water in a drought. We're not going to be taking it out of water bodies.
Or in a heat.
That's what the
in a
contract
heat use, like
Yeah.
there's a way to
Yeah.
make it where there's like 12 to 3 access to the rec pond is free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Or something like
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's a good idea.
You're already doing this pretty, but to get people involved and excited about it, might be talking more about native plantings,
Hmm.
because, you know, plants are part of the solution,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
I mean, that's where people can, you know, make some changes and have some fun in their own garden.
Yeah.
Do something that's good for the environment.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
And that could be part of our community day outreach. It could be a good piece of programming.
And the DLC is doing an invasive woods cleanup on August 3rd on Sisters Hill Road, right? So they'll probably talk
Mhm.
about that.
Invasive woods?
Invasive plants.
Oh, okay.
Cleanup
Got it.
there, yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks to everyone on the committee. This was not my work. This is like, a lot of people's work. So, yeah.
And thanks for driving all the way back from Massachusetts just today.
Thank you for saving the presentation.
I'd like to add one thing, is that we have incredible conservation organizations that are working in Stanford. They really think so highly of Stanford. And we have Millbrook School, for example, which has an environmental council that we are now talking to create a community-wide composting program with helping them, their help, we have DLC continually asking and offering opportunities to participate. For example, native planting in the rec park. We have a number of organizations that are eager to work with Stanford. So I think that partnerships really can help us. In Riverkeeper for the flooding and the dam. So I think the more they learn about us and the more potential they feel we have to work as a partnership, I think we can do a lot.
That's great. We need to, so word is getting out. Well, you've been doing a tremendous amount of networking, you personally. But I just wonder, is there something more we should be doing to let people know what Stanford is doing?
Yes, absolutely, because that's the other thing. Stanford is already doing a lot. So I think Community Day will be our opportunity to do that, to let people know. And there is a lot that Stanford is currently doing. And every time they hear that we're doing something, that gives them the encouragement to help us do more things.
The goal is to get this application through and get, certified so that we have the recognition that way too, but that will probably happen next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
Well, this is terrific. Thank you all. Can we adjourn? No. Okay. All right, Julia, you're up at bat for the skateboard park design.
Yes.
We should adopt the local law.
Oh, yeah.
You joked about passing a resolution when we were finagling.
Right. Oh, that's right. Okay, so we just need to make a motion to adopt local law number 7 for the year 2024, authorizing the town board to override the real property tax levy limit for the 2025 fiscal year town budget.
Second.
Wendy Burton.
Yes.
Julia Dakota.
Yes.
Eric Haynes.
Yes.
Nathan LaBerge.
Yes.
Betty Secord.
Yes.
You did say present.
Not for that.
Julia, skateboard park design.
Yes. So the rec
FEMA's,
campaign committee,
seeker stuff.
after finishing the playground, the next order of business was the design for the landscaping that goes around the recreation center. That process is currently in process, the design process for landscaping. Once that process has been complete, what we will have at the end of that is a detailed sort of map of all of the plantings, any of the work that needs to be done to create the vision for an updated landscaping paths throughout the rec center. At that point, once we have that scope of work, so to speak, it will then be bidded out by the town to the best offer for all of that work. We're estimating that to cost somewhere in the tune of $200,000 to $300,000 in work. The grant money that we received from the playground, $272,000, will likely not get received within the next year. That's just how long these processes take to get recognition of the grant, to administer the grant, to then get paid the money from the grant. We don't have $275,000 in the campaign budget right now, and so the rec campaign committee, based on public feedback, has decided to undertake a scope of work to do skateboard park design. Now, whether or not that actually gets built within the next work stream after the landscaping is to be determined. That's what the community day activity is going to be for the rec campaign, is to go back and get feedback from the community on what the master plan should look like and in what order. Playground was a priority, basketball courts and tennis courts were a priority, landscaping were the top 3 priorities. Is skateboard park the 4th priority? Who knows? And how much that's going to cost.
Would the logistics of any of that play a factor? Because I would imagine that if you're going to do landscaping and then you're going to do a significant build of something else after, you run the risk of damaging some of the landscaping.
Different location.
Depends on the location.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it could be a hybrid approach where you do some landscaping, skate park, and then some more landscaping.
Yeah, and that's sort of like a broad, like that's like this bigger discussion, right, of like city planning and town planning,
Yeah.
right? And, I think the reality is that our town is pretty small, and the appetite to just get landscaping paths done in a way that just gets it done, kind of like the playground,
Yeah.
right? These phased
Okay.
approaches are sort of, they can last for a very long time. And so I think, there have been community members who've donated to the rec campaign specifically for a skateboard park. And so in order to fulfill and respect, what that funding has gone towards, the committee has requested and to have the town board's blessing to move forward with contracting with the design company for the skateboard park. And again, whether or not that design gets used in 5 years or even 10 years, based on community feedback, will sort of be the question. But it's lower hanging fruit that shows that we're keeping momentum going. And we killed 2 birds with 1 stone because we went back and requested additional survey work to be done on the entire rec facility, including 2 additional parcels. And so we'll have an even better understanding of what could be planned in those tracts of land and what the best use of space is. So the survey work that was done on the core piece of rec property, which is about 24 acres, that, let's call it Survey 2.0, has been finished. And so we want to kick off the design park with that in mind, or the design for the skateboard park in mind, and then get an understanding from our overarching consulting company called Saratoga Associates, how we should be thinking about the master plan, given the new survey, given the feedback from the town, and given where we are from like a financial perspective. How can we continue to keep going? And so that's that.
So what you need from us is a motion. I'm sorry?
A blessing motion?
A blessing.
A blessing motion.
Would you like to make the motion?
Yes, I would like to make the motion to bless the decision of making Spawn Ranch the skateboard park design company.
I will second the blessing motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, I think we can do the rest of this fairly quickly.
Oh, yeah. It's like the cops, just remind me of the cops. Remember?
Resolution 7A, 2024, Budget Modification General Fund. We did not move forward to hire the police force from Pine Plains, but it's in our budget. So this is, and we had added revenue to offset that line item with the courts. So this basically is just removing those two, revenue and expenditure, from the budget entirely. That's what this does. Whereas the town of Stanford had budgeted for $40,000 in revenue, line 002610, and $40,000 in expenditure, line 0002312040, in anticipation of creating a police, we weren't creating a police patrol. We were hiring someone else's. And whereas at this time, the town will not be contracting for the services, and whereas the town wishes to amend the budget to reflect this change, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Stanford Town Board hereby authorizes the supervisor to amend the 2024 budget as follows. Estimated revenue, we're decreasing by $40,000. Appropriations for police coverage, we're decreasing by $40,000.
Second.
Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Julia Dakota?
Yes.
Eric Ames?
Yes.
Nathan Virtue?
Yep.
Teddy Secord?
Yes.
The highway department bought a used paver, so we're paying for that out of the New York Class Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund. This is Resolution 7B, transfer of funds. Whereas the town of Stanford has funds invested in New York Class account ending in 10, Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund, in order to maximize interest income, and whereas it is necessary to transfer funds out of that account into the Millbrook account ending in 1002 in order to pay an invoice for a used Leeboy 8616B paver. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Stanford Board authorizes the town supervisor to make the following transfer of funds, withdrawing $60,000 out of the New York Class account and depositing it into the Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund.
Second.
Thank you.
Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Julia Dakota?
Yes.
Eric Ames?
Yes.
Nathan Virtue?
Yes.
Teddy Secord?
Yes.
We have procured a backup generator. Oh, Nate left. He'd be so happy to hear this. For the cell tower that runs our communication station on Quarter Horse Way. So we're transferring, this is Resolution 7C of 2024, to transfer funds from the American Rescue Plan Funds account, New York Class ending in 09, move the funds to the general fund ending in 18. Whereas the town of Stanford will be investing American Rescue Plan funds to pay for the installation of a generator at the Bonte cell tower for emergency communications, and whereas the New York Class account ending in 09, American Rescue Plan Fund, contains funds for this purpose, now therefore be it resolved, the supervisor is authorized to complete the following budget modifications. And it was $1,999 out of the ARP account and $1,999 into the budget line for communications.
Second.
Thank you.
Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Julia Dakota?
Yes.
Eric Ames?
Yes.
Nathan Virtue?
Yes.
Teddy Secord?
Yes.
This is another budget modification. This is to move funds for materials. So Whereas the town of Stanford has expenditures for the adopted 2024 highway fund budget lines will exceed the amount of fund available in these certain budget lines, and whereas the highway has funds available in other lines and needs to transfer such funds to provide for expenditures. Now therefore it be resolved that the town of Stanford Town Board hereby amends and transfers from and to budget lines listed below for fiscal year 2024. So there'll be an increase for tree removal of $7,000, and there will be a decrease in the line item for oil and stone of $7,000.
I'll second it.
Got me.
Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Julia Dakota?
Yes.
Eric James?
Yes.
Nathan LaVertue?
Yes.
Eddie Secor?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do this next one. This next one is a resolution to establish a New York Class account that will be specifically dedicated to rec capital campaign funds. Basically, the rec campaign is going to continue to apply for grants, county and state, and we want to ensure that should there be any passing of administration, that those funds can solely be used for rec campaign capital or maintenance projects. Whereas the town of Stanford will be receiving grant funding from county and state sources to fund capital and maintenance projects at the Stanford Recreation Center, and whereas the Stanford Recreation Campaign Committee will be actively pursuing county and state-funded grants and execute its own fundraising in the future, and whereas it is necessary to set up a New York Class account to deposit these funds into, and whereas those funds can only be utilized to fund Stanford Recreation Center capital projects such as landscaping upgrades, skateboard park build, and playground maintenance. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Stanford Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to set up a New York Class account to deposit these funds.
Second.
Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Julia Dakota?
Yes.
Eric James?
Yes.
Nathan LaVertue?
Yes.
Eddie Secor?
Yes.
That's a really important one. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from June 13th,
As amended.
as amended.
As amended.
And second.
Did you find a
Yeah,
typo?
I spelled Nate's name.
I found a typo.
There.
I found a typo too. Rita was drunk when she wrote it.
She should have been.
High on life.
It was an awfully long set of minutes.
It was.
It was, Rita.
It's only 12 pages.
It was like 18 on my computer.
Jeez.
All in favor?
Oh, someone had a question?
Yeah, I'm just about the paver. Like, do we know that it has an engine and it requires diesel versus regular gas, you know what I mean?
The paver?
The Leroy.
Oh, I don't know what
So
it's.
we're talking about conservation and we're realizing that diesel is more polluting and,
We couldn't pave the, we didn't have a paver for this summer because ours died, so we bought a used paver. I don't know what the fuel source is.
but you see where there's a disparity there, like.
We have to definitely have a
The two heads
conversation.
aren't talking.
Right.
Is it a generator?
What?
No.
No, it's not a generator, it's a paver.
It's
Not
a
a
paver
generator,
for
but
the
paver.
roads.
For the asphalt.
Jim
If it
bought.
has an engine and if it's diesel versus, you know, because we just saw that diesel is 4 times.
You need a battery operated one.
Polluting.
I mean, I think, like, my perspective, and I think the reality is,
It's a
there's.
turbocharged diesel.
Is it, what, sorry?
Turbocharged. It's a Kubota turbocharged
Kubota.
diesel. Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my perspective is we're at, like, I forget who even asked the question, but, like, we're still in the process of, like, trying to share this information with people in a way that everyone will, like, take it and understand it in their own context. And I'm not sure everyone fully, understands the information. Like, it hasn't even been disseminated yet. And I don't think probably constituents who are making these decisions have, one, seen the information, and two, know what to do with it.
I realize that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm pointing out.
Right, no, I
and-
understand. I think
well,
it's
and
just like, some of these things also have been, they've been remiss for, we haven't had we haven't done these things for a long time. So there's
Well-
projects that I think are just on hold because we don't have these pieces of equipment.
Well, there's that, but there's also an order of processing that needs to happen with the climate smart
Yeah.
stuff, because the certification needs to happen, and once we get the certification, that opens up the door to grants to get things like this. So the town doesn't necessarily need to appropriate its own funds in full to get things that may be running on an alternative fuel options and that kind of stuff. So that's the reason that they're trying to be aggressive to get that certification, because then it's a separate coffer that we don't have access to right now.
I'm not really looking for a...
You're just pointing.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the July abstract number 7 for 2024.
Second.
Wendy Burden? Oh,
Yes.
no, never mind. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So, privilege of the floor? Okey dokey. Then, with no further business to pursue, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
What are we adjoining it to?
We're adjoining it to my pillow and my blanket.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, it was really.
Reedy, did you get Nathan's second?
It was a great.
Nathan seconded.
presentation.